In the bustling city of Varanasi, there lived a merchant named Ashok who had everything a man could want, yet somehow possessed nothing at all. His warehouses overflowed with silks from distant lands, his coffers jingled with gold coins, and his reputation stretched across 3 kingdoms. But Ashok carried within him a weight that no amount of success could lift, a gnawing dissatisfaction that followed him like his own shadow. Every morning he would wake before dawn, and immediately his mind would begin its familiar routine, calculating profits, rehearsing conversations with difficult clients, replaying yesterday's perceived slights, worrying about tomorrow's uncertainties. By the time the sun rose, Ashok had already lived through a dozen imaginary disasters and celebrated several phantom victories. His wife would place breakfast before him, but he would taste nothing. His mind too busy traveling through time and space, anywhere but the present moment. One day, a traveling monk arrived at Ashok's door. The merchant had seen many monks before. Varanasi was full of holy men making promises of salvation. But something about this one was different. He carried no begging bowl, wore no ostentatious robes, and his eyes held a quality that Ashok couldn't quite name. Not peace exactly, but something more like clarity, as if he could see through things that others only saw the surface of. "Teacher," Ashok said, using the respectful term, though he didn't yet know if this monk deserved it, "I have a question that torments me. I have wealth, family, success, all the things men strive for. Yet I am miserable. I wake up anxious and go to sleep exhausted. My mind gives me no rest. Is there something wrong with me?" The monk, whose name was Siddhartha, though some called him the Buddha, smiled faintly. "Tell me, Ashok, where does your suffering live? In your warehouses, in your gold, in your future that hasn't arrived, or your caste that no longer exists?" Ashok replied, a little annoyed at what seemed like an obvious question. "It lives in my mind, of course." "And where does your mind live?" This stopped Ashok cold. He had never considered this question. In my head? In my body?" "Look closely," Buddha said. "Close your eyes and find your mind. Where exactly is it?" Ashok closed his eyes and searched. He expected to find his mind easily. After all, he lived with it every moment. But the more he looked, the more confused he became. He could feel his body, could hear sounds, could notice thoughts arising, but the mind itself, it was like trying to catch fog. I cannot find it," Ashok admitted, opening his eyes with bewilderment. "And yet," Buddha said softly, "this unfindable mind is creating your entire world." Part 2. The teaching begins. Buddha accepted Ashok's invitation to stay at his home, and each evening after the merchant concluded his business, they would sit in the garden and talk. But Buddha's teaching was unlike any Ashok had encountered. He didn't speak of gods to appease or rituals to perform. Instead, he pointed again and again to the nature of mind itself. "Look at that mango tree," Buddha said one evening, gesturing to the garden's centerpiece. "Tell me what you see." "I see a mango tree," Ashok replied, wondering if this was a trick question. "No," Buddha said gently. "You see light entering your eyes, which your brain interprets as shapes and colors. Your mind labels these patterns as tree and mango. Your memory adds stories about mangoes you've tasted, trees you've climbed as a child. Your desires might arise. I should pick one, or those mangoes aren't ripe yet. Your aversions might stir, like monkeys always steal the best ones. All of this happens instantly, automatically, and you call this composite creation seeing a mango tree. But the tree is really there, Ashok protested. It exists independently of me. Does it? Buddha's eyes sparkled with something between amusement and compassion. Before you labeled it tree, what was it? Before you projected meaning onto it, what was there? The tree you see is not the tree itself. It's your mind's holographic reconstruction, painted with your memories, judgments, desires, and fears. 10 different people will see 10 different trees, each one a unique creation of their own mind. Ashok frowned, his merchant's mind seeking solid ground. But surely some things are objective reality. My gold is real. My debts are real. My problems are real. Are they? Buddha leaned forward. Tell me about your worst problem right now, in this moment. Ashok's mind immediately raced. My competitor, Rajesh, he's undercutting my prices on silk. He's trying to ruin me. I'm probably going to lose half my customers within a month. Where is this problem right now? Buddha asked. I don't see it in this garden. It's not physically here, but it's real. It's happening. Is it? Happening where? In Rajesh's warehouse? Or in your mind? Has he actually ruined you? Or have you ruined yourself 1,000 times in your imagination? This moment, right now, are you actually being ruined? Ashok sat in silence. In this moment, in this garden, with the evening breeze cooling his skin and the scent of jasmine in the air, there was no problem. The problem existed entirely in his thoughts about the future, in his stories about Rajesh's intentions, in his fears about what might happen. Buddha continued, your mind is creating a hologram, a simulation of reality that you mistake for reality. And you suffer not because of what is, but because of this hologram, these thoughts, stories, judgments, and projections. You are living in a world of your own creation, then wondering why you feel trapped.
Part 3, the 5 aggregates. Over the following days, Buddha taught Ashok about what he called the 5 aggregates, the building blocks of our holographic reality. Everything you experience, Buddha explained, comes through 5 processes, 5 heaps of phenomena that your mind bundles together and calls me and my world. First came form, the physical world, the raw sensory data, light waves, sound waves, tactile sensations. This was the closest thing to objective reality, Buddha said, but even this was filtered through our particular sense organs. A dog experiences form differently than you do. A bee sees colors you cannot imagine. The universe you experience is already shaped by the instrument of your body. Second came feeling, the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral tone that accompanied every experience. Watch closely, Buddha said. The moment you experience anything, your mind immediately stamps it, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. This happens before thought, before words, and this feeling tone begins to shape everything that follows. Ashok practiced this and was astonished to see it was true. The sound of birds, pleasant. The thought of his competitor, unpleasant. The distant sound of a cart, neutral. His mind was constantly, automatically sorting reality into these 3 categories. Third came perception, the labeling, the recognition, the identification. This is where your mind takes raw sense data and feeling tones and constructs something recognizable, Buddha taught. This becomes tree, bird, Rajesh, threat, opportunity. Your perception is not reality. It's your mind's best guess, shaped by all your previous experiences. Fourth came mental formations, the stories, judgments, plans, memories, and emotions that arose from perception. This is where Ashok spent most of his time, Buddha noted. Not in the present moment, but in the elaborate constructions his mind built around every experience. A sound becomes a bird, which becomes a pleasant bird, which reminds you of childhood, which makes you feel nostalgic, which makes you think about how time passes, which makes you anxious about aging, which makes you worry about your business legacy. You've taken one simple sound and built an entire world from it. Fifth came consciousness, the basic awareness that tied it all together. This is not your thoughts or feelings. It's the knowing of them, the space in which they all appear. These 5 aggregates are constantly flowing, changing, combining in new patterns every moment. Your mind takes this river of phenomena and freezes it into solid objects, permanent selves, fixed realities. It's like looking at a movie, individual frames flowing so fast they appear to be continuous, solid, real. But there are only frames, only process, only flow. The solidity is the hologram.
Part 4. The Palace of Projection. One day, Ashok came to Buddha in distress. My wife criticized me this morning. She said I care more about my business than my family. She doesn't understand how hard I work. She doesn't appreciate anything I do for her. Buddha listened calmly, then asked, "May I tell you a story?" He spoke of his own past, of the palace where he'd grown up, surrounded by luxury and protected from any sight of suffering. My father created an entire world for me, Buddha said. A hologram so convincing that for 29 years I believed it was reality. Beautiful people, pleasant experiences, endless entertainment. But it was a construction, a simulation designed to keep me from seeing what lay beyond the palace walls. When I finally left and saw sickness, aging, and death, it wasn't just shocking, it was disorienting. The hologram had been shattered. I realized I'd been living in a false world, a projection of my father's fears and desires. Buddha looked at Ashok with profound gentleness. Now tell me, what hologram are you living in regarding your wife? Ashok started to protest, then stopped. He sat quietly, and as he did, something shifted. He began to see the structure of his own thoughts, how he'd taken his wife's words and immediately constructed an entire narrative. She doesn't appreciate me. She doesn't understand. I work so hard and get no recognition. Each thought was a brick in a palace of projection, a holographic reality that bore little resemblance to what had actually occurred. What did she actually say? Buddha asked. Ashok recalled, she said, I miss you. Even when you're home, you seem far away. And you heard what? I heard criticism, attack, lack of appreciation. Who created that meaning? Was it in her words or in your mind? Tears came to Ashok's eyes as he saw it clearly. His wife had expressed longing, vulnerability, love, and his mind had transformed it into an attack, constructing an entire holographic reality where he was unappreciated, where she was ungrateful, where he was justified in his defensive anger. None of it was true. It was all projection. We do this constantly. Someone looks at us a certain way and we construct an entire story about what they think of us. We experience one setback and project it forward, creating a holographic future of complete ruin. We remember one past hurt and reconstruct the entire relationship through that lens. The holograms we create become more real to us than reality itself. Part 5. The Practice of Seeing Through. So what do I do? Ashok asked. How do I stop creating these holograms?
Buddha said. You cannot stop it, any more than your eyes can stop seeing or your ears can stop hearing. The mind will project. That is its nature. But you can learn to see through the projections. You can recognize them for what they are, mind creations, not ultimate truth. Buddha taught Ashoka practice. Throughout your day, pause, stop, and ask yourself, what is actually here, right now, before my mind adds its stories? What remains when I subtract my judgments, my fears, my desires, my interpretations? Ashok practiced this in his business. When a customer haggled aggressively, instead of immediately constructing a story about disrespect and launching into defensive anger, he paused. What was actually happening? A man was speaking words, expressing desires about price. That was all. The story about disrespect? A hologram. The feeling of being attacked? A projection. When Ashok saw this clearly, he could respond with flexibility and wisdom rather than from his defensive narrative. He practiced it with his wife. When she seemed distant, instead of spinning stories about her mood and what it meant about their marriage, he simply asked, "What's on your mind?" The stories collapsed, and real connection became possible. He even practiced it with his competitor, Rajesh. One day, instead of avoiding him in the marketplace, Ashok approached him. "I notice I've created an entire story about you in my mind," he said honestly. "That you're trying to ruin me, that you're malicious, but I realize I don't actually know you or your intentions." Rajesh laughed, surprised and relieved. "I thought you hated me. I've been terrified of your judgment. I lowered my prices because my family is growing and I needed more business. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to survive." In that moment, Ashok saw how both of them had been living in holographic realities of their own creation, projecting intentions and meanings that had no basis in truth. They had been enemies in their minds while being nothing of the sort in reality. Part 6. The Empty Mirror. As months passed and Ashok's practice deepened, Buddha taught him something even more profound. You are not just creating a holographic world, you are creating a holographic self. This was harder for Ashok to grasp. But I am real. I am Ashok. This I know for certain. Who is this Ashok? Buddha asked. The one who was a child, afraid of the dark? The one who was a young man, bold and reckless? The one who became a merchant, careful and calculating? The one who gets angry, the one who feels love, the one who is sometimes generous and sometimes stingy? Which one is the real Ashok? All of them, I suppose. They're all me at different times. So which one is the essential you? Which one would you cease to be if you lost? Ashok thought hard. Every quality he identified, merchant, husband, father, Indian, wealthy, ambitious, he could imagine losing without ceasing to exist. Who would he be without his business? Still someone. Without his family? Still someone. Without his body? Here it got fuzzy, but even his experience of himself changed constantly. Young, old, sick, healthy, awake, asleep. The self you take yourself to be, Buddha said, is also a hologram, a construction, a useful fiction that your mind creates by bundling together memories, sensations, thoughts, and calling them me. But this me is as empty of independent, solid existence as everything else. If there's no self, who is talking to you right now? Ashok asked, frustrated. There is talking, Buddha replied with a smile. There is thinking, feeling, experiencing. But these don't require a permanent, separate self that owns them. They happen. Like rain falling or wind blowing, they're processes, not things belonging to an entity. He held up a mirror,
Look at yourself. What do you see? I see myself, my reflection. Where is that self? Inside the mirror? Behind it? The mirror is empty. It doesn't contain your face, yet the reflection appears. This is how consciousness works. It's an empty mirror in which all phenomena appear. No self is needed for appearances to occur. The appearances happen, including the appearance of a self, but they're all equally reflections, equally holograms, equally empty of inherent existence.
Part 7. The Freedom in Emptiness. This might sound like nihilism. If everything is a hologram, why does anything matter? But Ashok found the opposite to be true. The more he recognized the holographic nature of his experience, the more free he became. When someone criticized him, he could see it for what it was: sound waves, interpreted, labeled, projected upon. His mind might still create a defensive story, but he didn't have to believe it, didn't have to live in that hologram. He could let it arise and pass like weather. When he faced a business setback, he saw that his panic was about a holographic future that didn't exist. The present moment contained only what it contained. Perhaps less money, perhaps changing circumstances. The disaster existed only in his mind's projection. When he felt proud of an accomplishment, he could enjoy the pleasant feeling without constructing an identity around it, without needing to protect and defend his image of himself as successful. The holograms still arise, Buddha explained. That doesn't stop. But you no longer mistake them for ultimate reality. You can walk through them, play with them, use them skillfully, without being imprisoned by them. This is freedom. Ashok experienced this freedom in small moments that grew larger over time. Sitting with his wife, he could be present with her, rather than lost in holographic conversations about what she might be thinking. Walking through his warehouse, he could see bolts of silk as simply colors and textures, noticing how his mind added value, meaning, and identity to them. Most profoundly, he began to experience moments when the hologram would become transparent, when he would see the raw, direct, unlabeled reality beneath the mind's constructions. These moments were brief, a sunset where there was only color and light before beautiful appeared, a conversation where there was only sound before meaning crystallized, a breath that was simply sensation before my breath arose. Part 8. Living in the hologram wisely. One evening, as Buddha prepared to continue his travels, Ashok asked one final question. If the world is a hologram of my mind, does that mean nothing exists? That nothing matters? Should I withdraw from the world? Buddha shook his head firmly. The holographic nature of reality does not mean nothing exists. It means things don't exist in the solid, permanent, independent way you thought they did. The silk in your warehouse still needs to be treated well. Your wife still deserves your love and attention. Your responsibilities still require wise action. Think of it this way, Buddha continued. A rainbow appears in the sky. It's real in the sense that you can see it, photograph it, point to it. But it's empty of inherent existence. It depends on light, water droplets, and your position. Move a few steps, and it changes. Remove any of the conditions, and it disappears. It's real and empty at the same time. Your life is like this. Your relationships, your business, your problems, your joys.
They're all real in their own way. They appear, they have effects, they matter. But they're also empty, constructed, conditioned, impermanent, dependent on your mind's participation in creating them. Understanding this doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more wisely, love more freely, and act more skillfully. When you know you're in a dream, Buddha concluded, you can still enjoy the dream, but you don't suffer from it in the same way. You don't cling desperately to pleasant dreams or run in terror from nightmares. You engage with the appearance while knowing its nature. This is what it means to live awakened in a holographic world.
Epilogue: The Merchant's Awakening. Years later, Ashok would still be found in the marketplace, still negotiating prices and managing his business. But something fundamental had shifted. Where there had once been anxiety, there was now engagement. Where there had been grasping, there was now appreciation. Where there had been a solid self defending itself against a solid world, there was now a dance of appearances, playful and profound. He taught his children not just how to count coins, but how to see through the holograms their minds created. He conducted business not from fear and greed, but from clarity and care. He loved his wife not as a possession or a source of identity, but as a fellow being appearing temporarily in consciousness's empty mirror. People noticed the change in him and would ask what had happened. He would smile and say, "I learned to wake up from a dream I didn't know I was having. The dream continues, but I'm no longer lost in it." And sometimes, on quiet evenings in his garden, watching the mango tree sway in the breeze, Ashok would remember Buddha's words, "The world is a hologram of your mind. When you see this clearly, you discover something extraordinary. The mind that creates the hologram is itself empty, luminous, and free. And that discovery changes everything while changing nothing. The tree is still a tree, but now you see it as it truly is, a miracle appearing in awareness, neither existing nor not existing, just perfectly, mysteriously here." In understanding that the world was a hologram of his mind, Ashok didn't escape the world. He entered it more fully, more lovingly, more awake than ever before. And in that awakening, he found the peace that had always eluded him, not because his circumstances had changed, but because he had finally seen through the projections that had imprisoned him. The hologram continued to play, but now there was someone watching who knew it for what it was. And in that knowing, there was freedom.